Howdy out there. Howdy out there again. Been away for a little while, and I'm also going to try to use a different. I think I'm going to start using OBS screencast so I can show my screen because just listening to me is probably not enough. But just thought I'd blather some stuff here. We just got back last week. We were in Wichita, Kansas. No, week previous, which would be May 9th through the 13th. We were in the project manufacturing, integrated manufacturing competition, which I call the 5-axis CNC machining competition, but it also has welding and assembly and inspection. So great competition. Going to be speaking at the H-Tech National Conference at the end of July in TCAT, Tennessee, about our journey to multi-axis machining, because we do not have a 5-axis machine. And how did we learn it, and how do we compete on somebody else's equipment and not crash everything? But anyway, my journey, we have a Facebook group called H Tech Educators, and that's Haas Technical Education Centers. Haas being the dominant CNC machine in the country, and they're extremely involved in education. So we're not just teaching those machines there, but we teach. I teach manual machining, precision grinding, all that kind of stuff. Today's modern machine shop, I'll say, what I've been doing since the mid '80s. So before I became an instructor 9 years ago. I'm reading this post online. It says, looks like my principal wants to close my program this year so he can support something else. Now, at first, I didn't know where he was from, but principal is leading me to high school. After talking with him, he may be willing to keep the program around if we can come up with about 50 to 75K. Does anyone know of any organizations to help out? My advisory committee is likely to be able to come up with some or most, but I'm trying to make sure that it doesn't fail, and on and on. My journey into learning to be an instructor, and also I am in a Sarasota County, Florida. It's a county school district, and we're a technical school. We were called Technical Institute, and then they changed it to Technical College, even though we don't give out degrees. It just sounds cooler. So we teach adults and dual enrolled high school students, usually juniors and seniors. So anybody from the county can come to the school. If you're in Sarasota County, it's free training. If you're from the state of Florida, generally, you get the state rate for coming to the school as an adult, which could be just out of high school, or you maybe dropped out in 10th grade and you come to school all the way up into your 60s or 70s. So no limit on that. So in our school, the technical stuff we teach, the building trades, construction, plumbing, electrical, air conditioning, heating. We also have automotive. We had auto body or auto collision, and that one got closed because we have a lot of boats down here. We have marine repair. We also have medical stuff. It's like surgical assistant. We have like accounting, culinary. Got culinary. You got a beauty salon in there, hairdresser. And then you have us. We're kind of like the manufacturing wing. And for a while, it was just me and the drafting instructor, which is semi-manufacturing and semi-like construction and that kind of stuff. Then when the state came up with another program called advanced manufacturing, it sounds really cool. And they're next door to us. And that's kind of been how it is. My first couple of years, I taught adults only, and have now included the dual enrolled high school students. Now, funding. The program, when I came here, had been canceled, and they built this whole new school, and the program wasn't here. I was working at Lockheed Martin in Orlando, and I believe the Manufacturing Association from the Sarasota and Manatee County area came to the school looking for machinists, and they said, "No, we don't have the program anymore. Lack of interest or something like that, or not enough jobs." And they said, "No, there's plenty of jobs." So they needed proof. They did a study, and a lot of it was terminology, like it's labeled that as more than machinist. There's many, many different titles. So they proved there was many jobs in the region, in our radius. Then they said, "Well, all the equipment's gone, so you got to come up with funding." So one workforce group came up with some money, and then actually our director of the school at the time got the county to throw in like 300,000 as startup to buy equipment, with the promise that we'd produce 100 machinists in 5 years. And that's pretty much what we've been living on. Now we've tried to like upgrade equipment. Equipment's getting old now. It's been 9 years, and I'm learning something from being around this H Tech network, because we have high schools in our network. We are kind of like high school and college. The most of the schools are 2-year college area, and then you get your 4-year universities. Now everybody's got different needs and wants. Universities are usually in the engineering sector. 2-year colleges um, are the probably the biggest producers of machinists on a higher level. And then you have us tech schools, which are kind of in the 1-year category, and then you have high school. Now, in our high school area, we don't have, pretty much in the state, we are allowed to have high school programs, but I think I only know of one that's truly just high school only. I say the majority of the machinists are coming from the 1-year tech county schools. There is one college or one or two colleges we're a big state, so up in the Pensacola area, the Panhandle, that actually has the 2-year degree program, which mimics a lot of the other, like South Carolina, Virginia, all those areas. Funding. The colleges, I was just at that Wichita Tech, State Tech, great school, a lot of great equipment, makes me jealous. And just learning from being around it, apparently colleges have a way of getting funding. They say have dedicated people that work on funding. High schools are looking at it from a K through 12 point of view. It's state funded, so it's like you need, if you're teaching geography or U.S. history, you need like a map of the United States on the wall. See some books. You don't need a lot, as far as equipment. If you're teaching automotive repair, then you need a whole area for that. So the cost of running these career and technical education programs can be very expensive. But some people can see the need for the obvious ones. And you get like machining, and some people are on board and understand, and some people have no understanding of what it is and are not willing to find the funding for you. I'll give you an example. Now that we've got our initial equipment, there's no talk about how do we replace equipment or um, get into more advanced areas, things like that. Occasionally, I had a director before that would say, "Hey, there's some funding going around. What do you need? Can you give me a quote?" Blah blah blah. I was putting in for a dual rotary table to convert one of our machines to be 5-axis capable, and I got a quickie quote online from Haas, It was like 28,000, 29,000. It's a year later now, and there's a new director. The other one's gone and said, "Hey, you remember that quote? They approved it." I'm like, "Oh, great." I said, then I looked at it and said, "Oh, that's not everything. It needs other stuff to install that. You need a dry board, and they have to come out and do the installation, blah, blah, blah." I got an updated quote. Now it's $38,000, another 10,000. And guess what? It gets refused now. Like, oh, a year plus later. Is it, and I can't get clear explanation. Is it because of the amount or description? And actually, there was somebody willing to do that here, but most schools don't have anybody to do that. They're in that K through 12 thinking, and they're looking at the big picture. So they're not looking at your program in particular. So Mr. Nathan here that's calling for this stuff probably has a principal that's looking at some space, and I think they're putting in a pre-engineering program. And engineering school is college path and all that stuff. Yeah, pretty much it's still that old mantra of got to go to college. So they look at us and got to go to college. I'm like, well, let's go with the got to go to college people. We're gonna put some space. We're gonna take your space and put something else in there that actually costs less money, and that'll be that. Um, so navigating these waters of education, it's really tricky. And I'm just here to be an instructor, but I end up getting very involved in things, and it's way above my pay grade. But I'm trying to be more successful. But it can be like wear you out after a while because you just come in, you do your job, you go home, and you get all this extra stuff like advisory committees. And I'm actually a contract employee, gets paid for 10 months. That's my 10-month contract. And I have to teach a couple extra weeks, so they add on a couple extra weeks. And but some people, yeah, I could be a 12-month employee. A lot of the colleges are 12-month. But you could have your busy times and your not so busy times. I seem to never have a not so busy time, other than when I'm on vacation, like spring break or something. But some of your college instructors can have gaps between when they're teaching, and you can do other things. Myself, I'm like high school teacher. I am there all day long. There's no like period for preparation or anything. We don't get any of that. We just come in at 7:30. Class starts at 7:45. We go all the way up to lunch, break for lunch. End of day is 2:15, and I'm contracted to be there the 3. So 45 minutes, 15 in the morning, 45 in the afternoon. That's it. That's my paid time there. Of course, most of us spend much more time there than that, and doing work at home and all that kind of stuff. And then trying to chase around like, how can we get funding? State of Florida was throwing around a whole bunch of funds last year, 2 years ago, and we couldn't seem to get the ball. I was telling my director at the time, we never could get anywhere with it. So this thing about principals want to cease, it's almost like you have to be Barnum and Bailey Circus. You got to like promote yourself all the time. Any like cool thing that happens, you got to like. I wrote a blog about us going to Wichita, and I instead of like explaining it, I got all pictures in there and stuff, and I submit the blog, and then the administration reads it, and they're like, "Oh, that's a good story. We should forward that. We can something we can talk about at meetings and stuff." It's like it'd be like a self promotion constantly, in order to be able to get like maybe some funding, maybe some support, maybe some like the day comes when they try to decide like to keep your program or not. Like they closed the auto body program here. And it was never a full program, but no worse than some of the other ones here. And for some reason they just closed it. It had great equipment in there. It had a big welding wall area, a big paint mixing area, great booth. And they just shut her down. They put some overflow. The Marine program got really big, and they got two teachers now teaching that. Yeah, it's funny how they can kill programs pretty easily. And in Florida, they'll call it daggering a program. It's been daggered, it's been killed. It's actually a official term that the state uses. I think they also base it on like how many people get jobs, how many people finish the program, how many people get jobs, and what the rate of pay is. So you got to document all this stuff. Um, I guess being we're kind of like college level, but we're working in the high school world. It's just that's the problem with that. Now, there's some greats. In Connecticut, there's a guy, Dave Tuttle. He's got an unbelievable, fantastic high school program, extremely successful, with a lot of support. I know of another school up in Wisconsin, I think, and he took that one from nothing, and they've turned it into a shop in which where they do outside work for other companies, and they run it like a business. They actually have a business name. There's some great stories out there. But for most of us, we have to struggle with through doing more than the job is supposed to do. We're supposed to be just teaching. We got to like teach, buy equipment, fix, repair things, put in bids, do advisory committee, all this extra stuff. Other than do grades and all that kind of stuff, but get people jobs. I've had to like the adults. I'm trying to get them on a I call it a job shadowing program, and then they can do part time working before the end, and then that gets thrown back and says that if they're on VA, VA doesn't want to be paying for people that are getting paid on the outside. All right, so they can't go to work, even though some of them want to go to work. Or you got companies just crying for you. Can you have anybody? We need people real bad. Sorry, you got to wait till they graduate. Or the other ones, you have students that they need some money. They all right, let's start working now so we can do part-time school, part-time work. And it's pretty good because now they can see the real world, take what they've learned, come back and review it, and we can kind of work around what kind of machines you have there, what kind of processes we have. We can because when you're on the job, you think you're going to get trained on the job training, they say, but most companies are just trying to fill slots and get things done. And you could talk all you want about official apprenticeship programs, and in manufacturing, you don't hear that too much. You hear that they talk about it, but what actually gets done on the job is just they just need things done. And if you're gonna be like operating a CNC machine for 2 years and that's all you do, that's all you're gonna do. If they need setup people and all the setup people left in that company and you're just barely out of school and they want somebody that has 5 years of experience and you've got like no years of experience, too bad. That's what you're gonna do. And they're gonna kind of like, we don't have anybody else. I can't find anybody. The other guy's retired. I put ads in the paper. Nobody comes, or they got problems. It's a really, really good time now. If you could be presented with opportunities that may be a little bit lofty, but if you can rise to the occasion, it's a cool way to go up. That's what happened to me in the mid '80s when I got out of my 4 month machine shop school. I got thrown. I worked for a year at one company, and then I worked for a smaller company, and they were like, "Okay, we need you to like step up." Not necessarily. We need you to do this, and I'm at this. And I'm like, "All right." And it was like self learning, like how to write programs for CNC machines. Even the boss doesn't even know how to do it. Anyway, how many minutes? 18 minutes. So, yeah, looking at this issue of funding. I'll go to these colleges, and I think we had one. I'm on a H-Tech council, and one of the guys, Phil, he's in Georgia. He says there's like three kinds of school. There's some schools get a ton of funding, great equipment, and not so good teaching. Then they got teachers that are like great teachers. They have terrible equipment. And then there's the rest of us that kind of in the middle. We're pretty good teachers and we got pretty good equipment. So, but always that battle of we need to fix this. So we really need to get into this area. Things are kind of changing. We have to like change our path a little bit. We need better. I just got better computers because we've been teaching more CAD CAM the last couple of years, and the computers we had were like choking all the time. Now all the engineering classes, the college kids, they got the greatest, latest, and greatest computers, and we're getting like the 5-year-old hand-me-downs, and we're probably working the computers harder than they are. Well, I shouldn't say that. They do a lot of good design. So we actually have an engineering, or maybe you call it pre-engineering class next door to us, and they're involved in that first competition, and now they need parts made. So it's actually it's kind of disrupting my teaching because I end up having to make the parts myself, and that interrupts me. I want the students to be making the parts, but they're always in a big hurry. And I got to start putting my foot down next year and say, listen, lead time. I can't be the one making these things. They need to support you, and you got to have to figure out some collaboration to get things done. And you need to, you know, have a broader scheduling approach. You can't be like coming in and expecting like, hey, can you machine this whole part in 30 minutes? What? People are unrealistic. Some of it, I think, comes from the 3D printing world. It's like you can print pretty much anything and even walk away. You could throw the printer on, go do something else, comes back, there it is. But it's just a little plastic part. So, no, we need a metal one. I'm like, oh, good. Why don't you go get a 3D metal printer? Oh, we don't have one of those. Can you just machine it? I'm like, yeah, but it's more than you think. So by the end of the year, they start to understand like, oh, that's more complicated than 3D printed. I'm like, yep, it sure is. Now that they got 3D metal printers are going to come online and get cheaper, eventually we'll get there. But this is the way it is right now. Okay, 21 minutes. That's enough for me. I'm going to end it for today. I haven't worked out in a couple of weeks, and I got back to my training schedule, and I'm really sore. I did a lot of leg on Thursday. It's like 24 hours later. That's when it hurts. It doesn't hurt when I get done with it. I'm just tired. And then I get up the next day, and I'm like, no, 24 hours later, it's like, oh my God, I can barely sit up, stand up and down. And that's what you get for going to Wichita, not working out, and the week before that. But anyway, that's about it. I got to go work on my drag bike in the garage. I want to get that up and running. I got a new motor in there. I got to degree the cams and get her up and running. And that's about it for me. So I'll see you later. And oh, here's my faithful dog, Sydney, right here. How you doing, Sid? She's keeping an eye on me. I'll talk to you later. CNC Dude signing off.